Hi everyone, today we'll be giving a gameplay overview and review of the game Ghostel.
Ooh, spooky.
Very spooky. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode with To Die For Games. I'm Tracy, the gaming maven.
And I'm Stephane, the games teacher.
Are you looking to see what the components look like? This one's pretty cool. Or looking for our review? Well, click on a timestamp below.
If you like what we're doing, leave us a comment and let us know, or subscribe to the channel so you get notified when we post new content.
And with that, let's get right to Ghostel.
Ooh.
In Ghostel, players are spooky ghosts that are trying to scare the occupants of the various rooms, but there are other ghosts too that are haunting the same hotel, so you gotta beat them out for being the most scary.
So here we have the components for Ghostel. The main game board, we have the deck of guest cards, scare tactics cards, spooky favors cards, terror bonus cards, the 4-player reference cards, we have the scare tokens. We also received the Creepy Cultist expansion, which includes additional guest cards and Creepy Cultist tokens. We have over here the player components in blue, red, white, and black. So we have our little ghost token. Yay, look at that, he's so cute. And ghostly barrier tokens. We have our player dice, 6-sided dice, and each player gets one 8-sided die, and a score marker. Start by placing the main game board in the middle of the table. Separate the decks of cards and set the Terror Bonus, Spooky Favors cards, and Scare Tactics cards decks off to the side. Shuffle up all of the guest cards and deal 9 out to the main board. Set the Scare tokens off to the side. Then each player will gather the player components in their color, including their ghost token, the ghostly barrier tokens, and the dice of their color, and we'll set aside their score markers near the top of the score track. So at the start of the game, each player is going to roll 3 dice. In this case, I've pre-rolled them, and the high total of their 3 dice will get to go first. So in this case, red is going first, then blue, then white, and we'll place their score track markers on the appropriate spots of the score track. On their turn, each player will want to place or move their ghost on a guest card. The goal being to meet or exceed that guest card's courage value with all the dice that eventually get placed on that card. So in this case, red is going to start and place on the Tyler card. I think I know that guy from somewhere. And place a die value, and he's placed a value that does in fact exceed the courage value, but we'll get to that in a minute. Next, blue will place on a card, and then white. For red's next turn, they're going to move to the middle. They have to move to a card that's orthogonally adjacent to the card they started from. So in this case, red moved down 1 space and placed a die value. Blue's second turn is going to come to the same spot and place a die there as well. Now, this card has a special action, and on the player reference, you'll note that that special action is the paranoia action, which means at the end of the round, those die values are going to increase by 1 value to a maximum of 6. So each of the dice will go up in value to a maximum of 6. White is going to come over here and place a 1 there. For red's next action, they will move down here and compete with white on that one. Blue's going to come over here and place their number 5. And finally, white, not wanting to lose out here, is going to place a die there as well. So now that all the dice are placed out, we're going to resolve each card in order. We'll ignore any cards that have no dice on them, so we'll look at all the cards with player dice. So starting with Tyler, we see that Tyler's courage value is 5, and the total value, all the dice placed on there, is does meet or exceed 5, so Tyler will be scared out of the room. And in this case, red will score 8 points. Coming over here, Jacob has a courage value of 4. The die on there is 5. However, the special ability on Jacob's card is the hardened special ability, which means that Jacob can only be scared with 2 or more dice. So the single die there, even though it exceeds Jacob's courage value, isn't sufficient to scare him away. So he'll stick around into the next round. Samantha and Wynn here have a courage value of 18. There are not sufficient dice values on here in order to scare them away, so they're going to stick around as well. Their special ability is the paranoia special ability, which means that the dice on here are going to go up in value at the end of the round to a maximum of 6. Lee is scared, and so we remove that die and that card, and blue gets 8 points. The Walders have a courage value of 9. 5 isn't enough to beat that, so they'll remain. And here we have Gino, and Gino has a courage value of 5, and we have 5 in dice. So red and white are each going to get some points. In this case, red has more scare value than white does, so red will get 8 points. And white is on the score track with 4 points. All the players are going to remove their ghosts. Gino comes away. Any dice remaining on the board are decreased in value by 1, and if they're already 1s, then they come off of the board. So in this case, this 5 becomes a 4. Except in this case, because of the special ability, the paranoia special ability, each die value will go up by 1. So this 3 becomes a 4. The 5 a 6, and the 6 already being the highest face value on the die remains where it is. Then we'll refill the guests from the guest deck for any room that is empty and missing a guest. Now in score order, so player with the highest score will go first. They will have the option of buying 2 cards. They can buy up to 2 cards, although only 1 card from any deck. So if they buy 1 Terror bonus, they would have to take either Spooky Favor or Tactics card. So red is going to buy a Terror bonus card and a Spooky Favors card. Each card has a cost of 3, so they're actually going to give up a total of 3 plus 3 is 6 points in order to buy both of those cards. The Terror bonus card gets revealed right away, and in this case, red will get to upgrade one of their die 6s to a die 8. There's only a single die 8 in each player color, so once they receive that, that gives them some extra flexibility in their dice. The Spooky Favors card that red bought will go in their hand, and they can choose to use it on a later turn. This Spooky Favors card is Spooky's Gamble. And so it says, re-roll any number of your Terror dice, keeping the new result. So that allows you to use that on your turn at some point in order to re-roll any dice that you have left. Blue is going to buy a Terror bonus card because he thinks that's a good idea. Upgrade to die 8. Look at that. Blue also gets to upgrade to a die 8. And blue is going to lose 3 points for that. Go down to 5. White is also going to buy a Terror bonus die. All the die 8s come out all at once. That's unusual. That's funny. So white is going to get rid of their die 6 and also get a die 8. That's going to cost them 3, so white goes down to a single point. Now that all players have bought the cards that they can buy, we'll basically start over in round 2. And the next round, the turn order will be based on the score track. So players further up on the score track will go first. So we're now going to review some of the other cards you can get over the course of the game. In the Terror bonus deck, we have this other card that is +1 Terror dice. What that allows you to do is take another die from your dice pool and add it to the dice that you roll during your turn. Now, even though you may be rolling more than 3 dice, you're still only going to get to place 3 dice during the course of your turn. So usually that would be the highest value dice unless you're trying to do something funky. Another card, an example of a card from the Spooky Favors deck. This one is I Got Chills, and what it allows you to do is to basically assign all of the phobias, and I'll talk about phobias in just a second, to a character by placing this card underneath that character. So if we look here, for example, on Samantha and Wynn, I can assign it to them and then give them all 5 phobias. Which is now really useful because what I got in the Scare Tactics deck is a card that basically allows you to influence characters with those phobias. So now that Samantha and Wynn have all the phobias, with this card I can influence people who are scared of clowns or snakes. So I'd play that card, and I would then get to use a scare token to increase my die value. And what that does, I put it underneath the die when I'm placing the die, and it allows you to basically double the value, the scare value of that die. So now instead of a 6, that one's worth 12. So now we're going to look at game end. The game will end quite simply when we get to the bottom of the guest's deck. Now in this case, we would have to refill with 3 guests because there's 3 empty rooms, but we only have 2 cards left in the guest deck. So that'll mean that that will trigger the end game and we won't play any more rounds as we don't have enough guests to fill up the Ghostel. Once we can't refill anymore, the player with the most points wins the game.
So now we're ready to give our review of Ghostel. So, what did you think?
I really enjoyed this game. It was surprisingly mathy though. It looks like it's going to be a kid's game, and to be fair, some advanced kids would be able to play it at a younger age, but the game box says 14 plus and they ain't lying.
It's true. I was actually surprised myself that it was fairly strategic, easy to pick up, but that strategy of, I still wasn't able to master it, and I'm way older than 14. So let's go on to art and theme.
The art in this game is fantastic. A lot of the, most if not all of the characters on the guest cards are people from the board gaming community. I recognize a few faces. Now I haven't really been out there meeting a bunch of people in person, so maybe there's probably more of them, but it was great to see some familiar faces on the card art.
Yeah, it's kind of cool when you can say, hey, I know that guy. He's an awesome guy. But I love when designers do that. There's a couple of the games that
Sure.
happen, and I love when they kind of put that human kind of component into it. And the theme is kind of pretty appropriate, like you're trying to scare people now, you're the ghost. It feels like it because of the components, which we're going to move on to next. So components. I'm all about components, and this one's got them in spades. So the ghosts are these resin ghosts. They're super heavy. They're super solid. They look like ghosts. It kind of feels like, you're really like this little ghost kind of going into the rooms. You're moving around the rooms and scaring people. And I found the art on the cards also kind of relied on that. Those components, they were okay cards. Like, they weren't super, super thick, but they were pretty solid. I wasn't going to see them breaking down anytime soon. The dice were pretty good. For me, the ghosts were really the clincher.
Yeah, I agree. The component quality in this game is pretty good.
Nice. So, mechanics, game mechanics.
Mechanically, the game, shares some similarities to other games that we've seen. Now, it's a dice placement game, but there's also some card interactions with different card abilities. So you're mixing, both of those things.
Mm-hmm. The mechanics are fairly easy. However, the strategy, because the idea is you're trying to beat the majority of someone in a room. So you're working together to scare the occupants of the room. You have to get the right threshold of numbers. And if you're the one in there and you don't have it, and some of them need more than 1 die, then you're kind of stuck. But if you don't have the majority, you're not the ghost that's going to get the most points. So it's that balancing factor, which I think is what ups the age range in this. It's just trying to get it just right, and of course getting the phobias and everything at just the right timing. So yeah. So you were saying that there's some similar games this is quite like?
So the mechanic of multiple players contributing towards a goal. In this case, it's scaring a guest out of their room, is very similar to filling a base or resolving a base card in Smash Up.
Yes.
And multiple players can play on the same base, and they'll share points depending on whether they have majority on that base. So that mechanic reminded me very much of Smash Up.
That's very true, actually. Yeah, it's very similar. Different theme, obviously, but yes, very similar. So that'd be a good one. One that I was thinking of was Las Vegas. Now there's a couple games with the word Vegas, so Las Vegas is the one that has the 6 casinos and you're rolling dice. And in this case, it's got that dice majority mechanic. You're trying to beat out someone else's die by adding more dice, and sometimes in Ghostel you can go back and add another die, trying to get your number up. So very similar, a lot of dice rolling, so a little more press your luck in that game than this one, but you're still relying on having majority in the casinos to win the money. In this case, you're relying on majority to scare the occupants, make the points. So overall opinion.
I really enjoyed this game. Like I said, it was a little more advanced than I was expecting based on the box cover art and the theme. I thought it would be a kid's game that would be kind of not really up to what I like to play. But I really had fun with this one.
Every time I played, I've enjoyed it. It's definitely up there on my games of just a nice, light, easy game. However, got enough punch to really make you enjoy it. So it's definitely a 2 thumbs up game for me.
Absolutely.
And with that, we'll see you next time. Bye. Follow us on social media.